Caring for someone with dementia can feel overwhelming, a journey marked by loss and immense challenges. But what if, amidst the difficulties, there were moments of genuine connection, sparks of joy, even unexpected laughter, maybe? This isn't about ignoring the hardships, it's about discovering how to find those precious glimmers of light, those moments that make caregiving not just bearable, but meaningful. Join us as we explore the untold stories of finding joy in dementia caregiving, offering insights and perspectives that might just change how you see this journey. Welcome to Fading Memories, your source for all things dementia caregiving. I'm your host, Jen Fink, and I have had 3 generations of loved ones with dementia, and I'm here to share the knowledge I've gained with you. Welcome back, listeners. Are you ready to dive deeper? I'm Jen Fink, your host of the Fading Memories podcast, and I'm excited you're here for another episode. Today, we are talking to Amy Scruggs. She is a prominent name in country music and has been for over 20 years, performing alongside legends like Clint Black and Trace Adkins. Her band, the Ghost Riders, is led by her son, Ryan Scruggs. And in 2022, she released an EP produced by Fred Mullen, featuring the hit single, What If It All Goes Right, which is a really awesome thing to contemplate. She's also a former TV host and a respected media coach, helping professionals and organizations evaluate their presence and messaging on camera and stage. She's a dedicated Rotarian, something we have in common, and Amy serves as an assistant public image chair for the Rotary Zone 26 and speaks regularly at leadership events. In 2024, Amy became a full-time caregiver for her father, who was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. She embraced this role with the compassion and strength, sharing their day-to-day experiences through her heartfelt social media vlogs. Her candid posts provide practical advice, emotional insight, and powerful sense of community for fellow caregivers. Through her openness, Amy continues to uplift others walking the challenging yet meaningful path of dementia caregiving. With that, thanks for joining me, Amy.
I'm just really honored to be with you today and
Thank you.
take this opportunity to share our passion for helping others.
It's definitely important, and I prefer this platform in addition to social media because it's something people can go back to easily and find a topic that they might be struggling with or something they resonate with right now. So hopefully this will be one of those episodes they come back to again and again. And I didn't even tell people what we're talking about.
This is Elementals with Rise.
Yes, that's what happens when you record on a Monday. That's raining. So we are talking about finding the joy in caregiving, which is something I struggled with. And I don't know if you struggled with it, but we're gonna talk today about how to make it a little bit easier to find those moments of insight and joy and light and those good moments, because you got to hang on to those. Why don't you start by telling us about your dad?
Oh, he was the sweetest. He was just the sweetest. And to kind of start it off, when I realized that it was time for him to have care, he was with my mom, which she was capable and able, but that's a lot for her. She was in her 80s as well, and her daily routine was different than his. My mom loves to just sit and watch the TV and maybe go shopping a little bit, but just very low key. My dad, I am the absolute complete carbon copy of him because he's high energy. And dad in his prime and his best was very active, ran his business. And then even after retiring, he was retired for like 20 some odd years, 27 years. He stayed busy. He was always doing woodworking, fixing people's properties, out putzing in the yard. Like dad did not sit. So here we get to his later stages of dementia and Alzheimer's. And my mom is like, okay, have a seat. Here's the remote. That wasn't him. So he was really coming unglued. So we had all of the regular symptoms of dementia that were taking place, and we had already taken his driver's license and trying to make sure how to keep him safe, but he was still in that probably late 5, early stage 6. But he was going crazy on the inside. I think he was just bored stiff. He knew he couldn't do much, and we wouldn't let him play with his power tools anymore. But he couldn't get up out of the chair. And I realized that he needed an action plan of joy. He needed to he needed to be entertained because that's what was left inside of him. As he was declining, we saw more of that child heart and child spirit. His worries of the world of his prior lives have kind of disappeared. He didn't remember trauma or stress or things from his work life or family dynamics. All he knew is he wanted to continue doing these things he loved and stop being told, no, no, you can't touch the power tool. No, you can't rake. No, you can't go out to the shed. No, you can't trim the roses. He didn't want the word no. And I came in and said, let's find every way that I can say yes. And that was all of a sudden this flip switched in him. And I saw the light come out. So we'll start with that.
Well, I've read and actually experienced with my mom. My mom loved to sweep. She was in a really early, still denying there was anything going on with her memory stage, which that stage lasted through halfway through her disease. She would sweep the front walk of our portrait studio and 1 hour photo lab, which is probably 100 feet by 8 feet wide. So, what is that? Is that 800 feet? I think. It was a lot. And, she would sweep it with just a regular household broom, not a push broom.
Oh my goodness.
Drove me straight up the wall. It's like, lady, yes, it's nice to keep the leaves from blowing in the front door because then you got, kind of messy when people first walk in. You don't want that. There was always 15 other more important things to do. And then in the recent past, I've read how that is actually a really good Montessori activity to give somebody some like, well, darn, my mom probably should have had my mom do things like sweeping and vacuuming because it's kind of repetitive. It's pretty
Yes.
wrong. So I would think raking would have been an excellent thing for him to do. He probably could have raked for hours and
Oh, it was raking. And even when I still let him trim the hedges, ooh, mom was not happy with that. But I put the gate belt on him and I would hold him up and he would take his turn and then he'd get tired and I'd go, okay, I'll get a turn. And so we did hey, well, maybe if we both take a look at it, we're going to be really good. And he would believe that that was a good idea. Not that I was telling him he couldn't do it. We came with these creative ways to give him the rest and for me to hold on to him so he could have a better grip. And he was good with that, helping him pull the weeds. Even on the hot days or the rainy days, you were right about those chores. I put a vacuum in his hand. He'd vacuum the same room for 30 minutes and just like happy as a clam when he could still stand, and gave him the little dusters. He was weaker, little feather duster, and asked him to please dust the shutters, that this was so important. The shutters were so important because maybe there was cat hair, some dust, and gosh, if you could help us with that today. And he'd go, oh, anything that became something that was a part of him helping something that needed to be done clicked in his value button. He had a value button that was so big. If you clicked that button, it was like, you have value. We need something from you. Even if it was simple as let's organize pencils, that value button brought him joy. He needed to be needed. And so throughout the whole process, even as he declined, what I would find to help him feel needed got more minute and more simple, but that was the main button that kept him happy and brought us joy.
And you started that when he was later in the disease?
Yes, I came in probably early stage 6. He was definitely later because I was busy running my career, as you have. I had a hell lot going on top of the fact that I live 2 hours away. My husband and I have 6 children. And so there was a lot going on, grown kids. The youngest was just starting college. So I had this full life, full career, full family, and I would visit. But it was late 2023 that I went, it's time. And I had to sit down with mom. I said, it's time. And I let the family know I got to put a pause on all of you and on everything and put the business on pause, shut everything down, and drove up and said, here we go. And I stepped into a wild ride because I was learning as I went as well. I had dementia coaches and read everything I could read. But I think because I understood him so well, because I'm so much like him, I thought, well, what would I need? What would I want? And then I could see his body language told me everything, even when he didn't understand. And when he stopped knowing who I was, his body language showed me that that brought joy, even in a small moment. And so we worked with that and kept expanding it until it just, the little things that we could do became bigger. And the big things that we were able to do had to become smaller, but still brought joy.
So one of the challenges with me, so my dad passed away in March of 2017. And so the holidays of 2017, my mom was there. And I think this was after he passed, but she was asking, as moms are wont to do, could she help in the kitchen? Is there anything I could do to help? Is there anything I could do? She kept saying that. So the one task I thought she could manage was crushing the peppermint candies to sprinkle on top of a
Sure.
absolutely not healthy, full of calories and fat, chocolate peppermint cheesecake. Oh, yum. I fortunately can taste it just by thinking about it because it's not something I make terribly often. Because it is a dense, delightful cake. And, I just had the candies in a plastic bag so she could see them. I had a meat tenderizer. It's one side is flat.
Uh-huh.
I guess that's for flattening meat, for pounding out the meat. And she'd like whack, whack. What is it I'm doing? And then I'd tell her, just use this and crush these candies. And I'd point to them. Oh my God. After like the fourth time, it's like, never mind, I'll take care of it myself. It's like,
You had that anxiety of repeating yourself.
yeah, well, it was just like, you're not helping, go away. That was what I was thinking.
Sure.
And it didn't help that since that was like such a really strong feeling, it was like, I'm not going to engage with her when she wants to help because it just causes way more stress. I mean, she was getting frazzled and stressed, and I was frazzled and stressed. I'm like, nobody
She
needs
was sensing your stress in that as well.
probably, yeah, but she just was awful. So
And
how did
setting that
you?
energy in the room and realizing I have to mentally go in each time, starting every day with him, knowing I will repeat myself 120 times. 5 seconds later, he's going to say, "What are we doing again? What is this? What am I supposed to do?" And that was my job. Okay, so I'm going to say it again with the same joy and the same patience that I said it the first time. And if I put myself in that place that this is what I'm doing, this is the patience I'm going to bring into it, because the reward was he didn't get agitated. He didn't get that stress level where it became too much. He goes, "That's okay. No, what you're going to do is you're going to take that mallet. You're going to, okay, hit it one more time. That's it." And he'd go, "That's it? Are we done?" "Nope. I think maybe there's one more. Do you see one more we could hit?" And I would just continue letting it be his idea to look for that. So I'm creating reasons for his brain to think and fire and stay engaged with me, even throughout the simplest things. We did similar tasks. I had him help me create some wreaths at Christmas time that all he had to do was like put the little things on the wreath. And that was hours of him understanding that. He would help me. We had our Baking with Dad series that was on our vlog, on our videos. And we had matching baking hats, matching aprons. So he knew when I pulled out the costumes, this is what we were doing. And it was part of the fun was even getting dressed and taking the picture in our hats and doing the intro. It became this thing that he knew, oh, this is a big deal versus, hey, we're just going to make some cookies. We made it this big thing. And each step, whether it's melting the butter, I would bring the stool over where he could sit. So every little stage of making this item became the entire activity that thankfully filled space and time in the day because he had to be entertained at all times, but also allowed him to have each little creative moment be its own thing to, again, reduce those agitations. And I really loved the experiment of that and also seeing how it worked with his disease to still find those little success moments that are now the greatest treasures. The videos that I have in those memories are the treasure of a lifetime.
I wish I had talked to you 8 years ago, which almost predates the podcast because this is the 8th year I've been doing this. So, with that said, part of my issue was one of the things I always took the advice, simplify the hobbies that they used to love. Tried that. Super easy little things that I thought my mom would totally enjoy. And I wasn't stressed until she started going, "Oh, I'm going to do it wrong. What? I'm going to do it wrong." And it's like, worry about it. You can't do it wrong. Look, see, it's like if you flub up here, look, it's easy to fix. Can't do it wrong. Let's just have fun.
See, in that reversal, I would take that around and just say, no, this one's the right way. So if he thought it was, no, that was the right way. Well, it was. And I would re-emphasize what's right and not what's wrong, because now his brain is looking for wrong. No, that was the right way. That was exactly perfect. It was. And we would change to where he every time was successful, regardless of what it was. It would be like, yes, you did it. Even if it was what we consider wrong. When you're dealing with dementia, there's no such thing as wrong.
Well,
There's a
she thought,
successful moment.
she was always like, I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong. No, you can't do it wrong, is what I would tell her. And then I would encourage her to try. And I'm like, see, you did great. So I was kind of the same way, but
Hmm.
I had to like scale that mountain of like resistance, negativity.
Yes.
And it was
And
not my
questions seem to work as well. It would, well, what do you see? How do you feel this should be done? If I asked questions, so it would let me know what's going on in his brain in the moment, because I guarantee 10 minutes later, he'd answer the question differently. The next day, he wouldn't remember we did it, right? This is how dementia is. But in the moment, whatever's going on in their brain is the most important thing. What do you see? He got very upset about the trees when the fall came, my example, because he loved being in his yard. Well, the trees, as we know, lost their leaves. He said, I got to get those out of there. They're dead. They're dead. We got to cut those down. We got we got to cut them down. And instead of saying, no, 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 we don't cut them down, I would say, well, what do you see? Do you see leaves? No. Well, what time, what do you know? And we talk about the seasons. And then I would say, well, what do you see? Well, you see it's dead. Okay. Yeah. You know what? Maybe you're right. How about if we keep a close eye and check it again tomorrow? Ah, that's a good idea. Of course, was always kicking the can for tomorrow, but there was no convincing him they weren't dead. And all he was focused on was that they had to come down. So every day I had to make it his idea that we would just observe it one more day, because he lost all concept of seasons and that that tree was going to grow leaves again. And so I just told him it was okay. You're right. Maybe we'll look at it again tomorrow. What if we give it another day? And another day came to another day. And, you know, he passed on March 1st. And I have to tell you, I just was up at mom's 2 days ago, and the leaves are all back on the trees. And I lost it because
sure.
he didn't get to see that the leaves came back. The roses were blooming. Those trees, he was so concerned they were dead. But by in the moment reducing his stress, reassuring him that we'll just look at it again tomorrow, it always brought him back out of that anxiety, because they were causing him anxiety. And for every individual, I think with dementia and Alzheimer's, it's going to be a different thing that might cause that spike. Something in their brain is telling them that they have to hyper focus on this one thing.
That
And
makes sense.
right. Just agreeing with him then and going, you're right, kicking the can down the road another day, eliminated it every time.
And when I started caring for my mom, so it was March of 2017, um, there was one podcast. There were not as many books, and you did not share your journey or your loved one on social media. So I had to learn all this, quote unquote, the hard way. Some of it was the hard way. That's why I started my show, because I knew people like us who were working and had families and, lives and, did not have time for deep internet research that I was doing that was not yielding anything that worked, because I was doing what the advice was, like simplify their thing, but I didn't have what you just said, like, well, my mom threw up this huge resistance and this huge negativity, and I didn't know how to get around it.
Right.
And like what you said, I was like, well, dang, that's so smart.
You're right. It's the getting around it, finding those creative ways around it. And she may have still bucked at you with everything, but coming at it from different directions. And I hope that this, especially with you and I sharing our experiences this way, is going to help somebody else think outside that box creatively. And sometimes even when we say simplify, now simplify it again, twice as much more simple than what you thought. Simplifying might have, I would have him literally just, one day we literally filled a jar with beans. And that was a really big deal. One day we folded his socks. We took out the sock drawer and found the matching socks again. That was a really big deal. But we made it fun and told him how important it was, because mom said we had to do it. Or we were going to be donating some of them to Goodwill. And he was, oh, okay. Socks. He's not going to think we're not going to give these socks away. He's just thinking this is important. Okay, I'm needed. And it went back again to being needed, regardless of what that item was, because he couldn't conceptualize what items we would give to Goodwill and what we wouldn't. But to him, it was a need. So simplified the simplifying in that moment. And you're right about putting it on social media was not something that was done before. And it was a huge decision, and one that I had asked him about when he was still able to understand. And it started with a couple years ago when I just said, hey, do you mind if I turn on the camera and have you share stories from your childhood or young adult years so that we have these for the kids later? And he said, absolutely. And so he would share about when he was a paperboy. And that's when I started calling it Talks with Dad. And I would just go up and visit, once every couple months and film this little mini episode with him. And then I asked him, are you okay if I put these out? And he said, yes. And I said, are you okay if I keep doing this ongoing? And he said, absolutely. He gave me his permission when he knew he was giving me the permission. And thankfully, my mom knew that as well. So as I then move in and now turn the camera on for everything, we knew he had given his consent. And you could see even in the end, even in his last week, when I turned that camera on, he would kind of perk up. He would lift his little head or he would get that smile. And he knew he had people out there that are wishing him well. I'd say, look, people are saying that they love you and, they're praying for you. And he understood that in the moment. And it changed by day. But I have no regrets, I think, because I communicated it with him early on. And I made sure that I wasn't putting anything that would embarrass him or that was, not tasteful, but was truthful. And I wanted to take this stigma off of this being almost this silent disease and that people don't understand and they think it's just memory loss or just people getting agitated and angry. Like I feel like there were these two compartments that understanding is about this disease, and there's so much more to it and so many more ways that we can keep our loved one happy while they're going through this.
So how did you, I mean, you've got this huge career and businesses, and I mean, you had like a lot going on.
Mhm.
And obviously, you like to be out there and busy and using your brain. How did you slow down to where you could enjoy putting beans in a jar for an hour and not want to like poke an ice pick through your brain? Because that was my other problem with my mom. It's like, if I have to repeat this answer for the 17th time, I'm going to lose my mind because I have other things I really should do. It's like, I never felt like we connected,
Yeah.
or we did sometimes, but there was a lot of times, especially earlier before I actually started the show, started talking to the caregivers and learned all the things that I thought I knew that didn't. And I'm still learning, which is awesome, even though my mom's been gone for over 5 years. It was like, and this is not just dealing with my mom, this is how I am, but it was like the to-do list was almost like a ticker, just running through my brain. And I was like, I can't, it's like, I can't do this. And if the it's funny now, but there's one time I used to go once a week. There was many, many weeks I'd be like, this is the week. It's like, I'm not super busy this week. I'm gonna go again Thursday. I think Thursday will be great. I'm gonna go twice this week. Never happened. And I never, until the very, very end, listened to the guests who said, you need to go for less time more often, which my mom was about 15, 20 minutes away, and I had to pass two schools, depending on which way, two or three. So if I wasn't careful, I got caught up in school talk. Yeah. And that was like, that was worse than visiting my mother. Like, I didn't want to deal with that, because it just sucked up all your time. I'm like, I can't go, spend half hour, 40 minutes driving. That's not including school traffic to spend an hour with her. I'd rather go and spend longer.
Right.
And there was one day I was there for like 2.5 hours. Finally desperately had to use the ladies' room. Came back, and my mom's like, oh, hi, what are you doing here? And I was like, oh my God, the whole 2.5 hours I've been here is totally gone from her brain. I need to start going more often and
Yes.
shorter time. And I did.
Well, and that's inevitably going to happen with all of our loved ones with this disease. I could bend flips and we had the most amazing day he ever had. And then 30 minutes after we're back, what's next? Well, we did. Getting to that mental place, realizing, yes, they are going to forget. But in the moment, They were comfortable, happy, and safe. And so I will remember for both of us. And that's all I kept thinking. I'll remember that for both of us. I'll remember for both of us. He was happy, comfortable, and safe. And so if I kept that in the top of my mind, it took away that anxiety that we just did all of this and he's not going to remember. No, he's not.
Yeah.
Happy, comfortable, and safe. And so would I want that? Would I want my children to do that for me? Would I want that care? If I was in the same shoes, which is possible, right? If this is genetically there for me, is this possible? I have modeled to my children, thankfully, this is how we can do this with that creativity. And interesting when you asked as well about how I didn't go nuts, especially being ADHD, always running a big family, big career, go, 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 learning how to be happy and at peace counting beans or just sitting on the bench talking about leaves. And I realized that this was the first time in my entire life I ever have just sat and talked about leaves or counted beans. And I went, whoa, what if this is the only season in my life? So take dad aside. For me personally, what if this is the only season that I sit down and actually literally smell the roses? Because I have spent 52 years not doing that on the hustle. What if I look back and realize, remember that season with dad that we actually just talked about roses, that we actually just talked about leaves? What am I learning from this as a human? How is this helping my system and my brain to slow down and feel what it's like to have that kind of peace, even in the caregiving? So I was saying, where are moments I can find my own joy and realize what a blessing that I got to put on yoga pants today and I didn't have to put on I'm going to go be a keynote speaker in my stilettos day. Oh my gosh, I'm in sneakers. Wow, I don't remember a year that I've been in sneakers every day, like ever in my life. Okay, that's one. Wow, I really didn't have to do all this Amy and put it all on. It was the ball cap and the braids. That was unusual for me. So I embraced the season and I had no idea how long this season was going to be. How long you know, was I in this for a year, 2 years, 3 years? That was going to depend on his decline. But I took it as a blessing so that then those bean counting moments were special because they reset my nervous system too. And I would stop and meditate on what can I learn from this? What is this feeding me at the same time? Because now that he's gone, I have to go back at some point here to the hustle again. So what did I learn from that now I'm giving myself the okay to go out and watch the bird feeder and smell the roses and look at the leaves in a whole different way than I've ever looked at in my life. I shared in his memorial service that I would hope that everyone would have a chance to have one day of living in the moment that way. And I'm talking minute to minute, because when you're dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's, the moment is 30 seconds. To live truly in the moment, not about the past, not about what's next, but the right now was eye-opening way of living. And I hope that I take that with me for the rest of my life.
That's very helpful. One of the things that I discovered with my mom, we would go to the park and watch kids. And unfortunately, her personality, and I've since learned and shared this regularly, she would walk behind me 10 or 15 feet. Nothing I did would convince her to walk arm in arm, you know, to walk next to me. I mean, I knew that they lose their peripheral vision. I have very wacky vision. I don't have peripheral vision on both sides, and I don't have depth perception. So I could completely relate to some of the really weird visual things that my mom went through, like walking around puddles because they looked like holes. It was interesting to be able to like mentally see what she was seeing because I could go there in my own brain. It's very strange. Um, the day that she tried really desperately not to step on her own shadow was almost hysterical, but it was, yeah, because she kept saying she didn't want to step on this person, and it was like,
It was her.
yeah, and it was like, and at least she wasn't like dancing a jig trying to like disconnect because we were in a regional park. But as she progressed, she would literally walk 10, 15 feet behind me, watch her feet, and either hold her hands or wring her hands. So she was a definite fall risk.
Yes.
At this ad nauseum at this point. I was so afraid she was going to face plant on the sidewalk and, bystanders, EMTs were just going to be like, you are the worst person on the planet because that's what it looked like. It looked like I wouldn't let this poor old lady catch up. If I slowed down, she'd slow down. If
Oh
I
no.
stopped, she'd stop. But once we got to the park bench or whatever, she was great. And it got to the point where I also had to find places where kids congregated and then we didn't have to walk across grass because the instability that she felt walking across the grass, that also made her a huge fall risk. So thankfully she never fell. She fell
Thankfully.
once on my watch. Um, I had a tendency to take her and another resident out at the same time. My mom befriended two other women named Diane,
Aw.
which kind of made things confusing, but also kind of easier. If I took both of them, I would only have to yell Diane and they would both look. And we'd gone to McDonald's, attempting to like go to the little playground they have and watch kids. Apparently we were there too early, or they don't take toddlers there anymore. I don't know. This was before the pandemic. And the benches were really hard. So I had these like two semi cranky older women. Her friend wanted a hamburger, and I'm like, fine, we'll go to McDonald's, Toots. I'll get you the hamburger. And my mom tripped over the parking curb.
Oh,
As I was helping her friend. So that was the only time that we had an issue. She had solved. Yeah, but
thank goodness.
yeah, really. And I was like, she was shook. I was shook. Her friend had no clue what was going
That fall risk is so scary. I was stronger than I've ever been, how much I had to always hold him up or prevent the falls and really be there in complete standby assist with him. And then it became full assist with everything. And I didn't realize how strong I could be, but the falls were terrifying. He didn't have a fall on my watch. We had a couple close calls that I literally caught him and got him back up. And one time, thankfully, only in the grass, I got him back up off the ground. But that is a scary part, and finding those ways that he was the same, very, very prideful. I don't need your help. Let go, right? And so I'd go, okay, well, are you okay if I just stand next to you? Ooh, can we have fun matching steps? And then I made it fun, like it was a game. Then he didn't realize that I was there to help him. If I masked it in a way that he didn't think I was helping him because he couldn't do something, and I made it something fun that we were doing together, and go, oh, look, we're the same height right now, it would make him forget that I was helping him walk. And so I would find creative ways to undo that narrative in his head that he needed help and just made it fun, and it would shift instantly. I almost found it easier to shift his thinking into where I needed him to be, easier than any other human in my life, because they can stop and go, wait a minute. He couldn't. He would just go, oh, okay. And then he would agree with me on this new way, as long as, again, it was giving him value, making him needed and independent, even when it was braced in being dependent.
Makes sense. And that's a really good like mental thought process
Hmm.
to shift from like where I was to where you were, because man, I'm feeling like a complete.
Everybody's doing the best they can.
Oh, I know.
You had your hands full.
And my mom wasn't easy. A fall is what took her out. The more help she needed, the more combative she got. And unfortunately, the caregivers were great in her memory community, but they did not have time to like do all the things that you're talking about to get my mom in the shower.
Right. Oh, yeah, that was a fun every time. That was a lot of song and dance and a lot of, some reasoning, and it's okay. And then reassurance. I know you don't like this. I know. All right. We're in this together. Hey, you just got my foot wet. And he'd go, huh? And then, so I would just redirect. We're in this together. I know you don't like this. I'm sorry. I know. All right. Is that temperature okay? And I would always validate. I know. I'm sorry. I know you don't like this. All right, we're going to do this quick together. Can you stay there with me? We're in this together. And I remember it was just a few weeks before he passed, when he knew I think he knew. I really think he knew he was going quickly. And he even said, this is hard,
Mm.
hard. Because I had to help him into the bed and help him in the restroom and make sure he got set to bed okay. And I looked at him and said, I know. I know. I'm so sorry. Because at that moment, that was him. That wasn't him with the dementia. That was dad in there crying out to me. I said, I know. And you're not alone. And this is hard together. Can we do this together? Okay. And then when I laid him down, he said, thank you. And his last words to me were, thank you. I think at one point when there was a different disconnection he had with another family member, and he was upset and frustrated. And I said, I'm here with you. And it was just he and I. And he said, thank you. Thank you for listening to me. I just didn't want to do this today. I didn't want to do this. Thank you for listening to me. I said, your opinion matters. Because he would have these moments where he was still there and still him. And we never know when those are the case. So the more I would validate, and it would just shock him and be like, oh, that was dad. And then boom, he's gone again. But that was dad needed to hear, okay, you don't have to do this thing right now. I hear you and you matter. And those affirmations to him just again would reduce that agitation that because he was a strong, stubborn man. But finding those ways to let him know I hear you and I see you, even when he couldn't hear and see himself. And they would come out and then they'd go away. But I was really happy to see working with him, his personality and knowing what those root issues and root needs were allowed me to navigate better. And I think anyone dealing with your loved one, if you know them in that way, gosh, what are those root needs? What's that biggest insecurity for them? Or what's that biggest fear for them? Or what was that one thing that brought them the most joy? Who is that inner child? And finding those things is where we created what I would love to say my success platform with him, because they feel, as painful as this is that he's gone, it was a success. He had the best year of his life that last year.
No, it sounds like it. And I was really happy to land on the going to the park and watching kids. It just gave her joy.
Yeah.
That was all I tried to do. It was like, you know what? I was way done with the advice well before I, determined that it was worth the struggle to get her from the car to the park bench and back and not fall on the cement. But it was,
She was safe, happy, and
yep.
loved.
And
Safe,
she
happy.
was a mom and a grandma, and family was important to her. So that made sense. And I kind of knew that. And it gave me like, I wasn't struggling to find ways to engage with her because it was kind of there. Sometimes she'd be a little talkative, other times she'd be really quiet. And I just went with it. We did go to the dog park once. That was at least
Fun.
yes. And I brought all three of my golden retrievers and my mother, which means at one point when we were leaving, we could have stayed longer, but dog parks need bathrooms for God's sakes. Like doggies can go, but the humans are like,
We had to have bathrooms everywhere we went. Yes. Could not go somewhere that I didn't have a bathroom at a moment's notice.
oh, that's me. My mom was fine, but no, I was like,
It was both of us.
oh, well, his was both of you. But I thought it was funny because my youngest golden at the time, he was, and you Geminis are just going to have to suck this one up. He was pure Gemini. He was the most loving, snuggling, sensitive golden retriever. You opened the front door and it was like a blur of blonde rocket leaving the property at a high velocity. He would go and run on the golf course for an hour. And short of having a net, which I'm not even sure would have worked, you would have to have a net on like a 12-foot pole. Not sure that's even structurally possible. He knew exactly how to evade you. And we backed up to open space. So if he didn't get out the front, if you let him out the back, he'd be over the fence because it was only 3 feet tall. Somebody should have told me not to cut it quite short. If I had known, I would have left it at 4. He might have been able to manage 4, but he sailed over the 3-foot fence. And he would run in the open space, chase the critters, the ground squirrels, the jackrabbits, and just run gleefully for an hour. And then he would watch and he'd jump back over the fence, drink out of the fountain. And as soon as he'd be like, he's back in the yard. Okay, for me. And he'd be like, oh no, pew, back over the fence. So that was Remy. I had my mom hold his leash so that I could watch her and navigate the two more senior dogs. I guess Luna wasn't a senior then. One of them was old. And he was so good with her. He looked at her. They got to like a pole that divided the sidewalk, like a where you would chain up, to prevent cars or something. Not exactly sure what you call it. It's just a pole in the middle of the sidewalk. And they had to navigate around it with the leash. And the two of them managed really well. I was shocked. And
That's wonderful.
I don't know who did it, if it was him or her or both, but it was like they
They sensed each other.
that was so sweet. And
And those are the moments.
my mom had a great time at the dog park, and that I was risking her launching into her repetitive story, which was I've had dogs all my life. And when I was pregnant with my first, which was me, my mother-in-law said, well, now that you're expecting a baby, you'll be getting rid of the dogs, right? My mother remembered that for 50 plus years.
Of course.
She said that in front of my grandmother, too. It was very embarrassing. But after a while, I was like, oh my God, if I hear that story one more time, I am going to lose it. And I got smart. And especially at the dog park, I think I've got it on video where she started on her story. I was like, oh, no, we're not. And I said, as soon as she said, I've had dogs all my life, I said, oh, really? What were their names? And what was funny is she goes, well, the first one was named Misty. The last one was named Misty. And we liked that name so much that we just gave them all that name, which really made me laugh because we at one point did have actual male dogs and none of them were named Misty. So I could ask her about the older dogs, the ones from when I was a kid. And sometimes she'd remember and other times not. But it was like going into places like the park to watch kids or the dog park.
Joy.
Yeah, it was.
And then that moment, she felt loved.
Yep.
She was something that nurtured her spirit, was being taken care of. And what I love about you sharing this is clearly those are anchor memories for you.
Mm-hmm.
As now when you think about your caregiving and those hard moments, believe me, I had some really difficult, caregiving. Anybody here who's been a caregiver, especially for somebody with dementia, it was physically and mentally difficult, but those anchor memories, and you just described one of those with your mom. And I'm so grateful to have had so many with Dad by doing it this way and choosing play and choosing reinforcement. And every night when I'd put him down, do you feel loved? Yes. Do you feel safe? Yes. Are you happy? Yes. Okay, we did our job. And we pick up and start it again. And I'd ask him that probably 20 times a day, even in something. Do you feel safe? Yes. That was so important to me because he would, that he felt safe because they don't know, they know their bodies aren't working. They know their legs might not work. They understand that the things are happening. And so always reminding him, you're safe. I got you. I won't let you go. You're okay. I promise, not on my watch. You won't fall with me. I've got you. Even in a parking lot or taking him out in public, if something would startle him, you're safe. And those reminders and those key words that we know speak to the loved one, it's going to be different for each individual. I'm just using the examples of what those words were for Dad that kept him happy and enjoying what we were doing. He was a little celebrity in every store we went into in their town. It's hard. If I go back into those stores, they miss him. They know me. They remember him. They're friends on social media now. He was loved by so many, and they say he's so happy. Even once he had to go to the wheelchair, we had to change our routine. We did it, and you're safe. It's okay. And those reassurances also, again, keeping me calm. I'm saying the same things out loud to myself. You're safe. It's okay. Are you happy, loved, and well today? And that also allowed me to reduce my own frustrations or agitations or trying to work at the same capacity as I was as professional Amy or mom Amy. This was a whole different person. And I realized it was a blip in time that I'll treasure forever.
I think that's key, is knowing that you're playing a very different role and it's temporary.
Yes.
I didn't get that until closer to the end, which was because of people like you. I talked to enough people in the last 3 years of my mom's life. It was like, oh, maybe I should start listening to these people.
Well, we all learn from each other, don't we? My goodness.
Yeah. And it was obviously, I chose this format because I think it's the easiest. But one of the things that I do know is finding activities for men with dementia seems to be infinitely harder than activities for women.
Sure.
So what kind of things, well, first off, what was your dad's profession and what did you guys do that were more male oriented that might help listeners who are caring for men and are like, yeah, right. Well, dad never stepped foot in the kitchen. So asking him to empty the
That was
dishwasher.
a shock. Having him do the baking series, he had never stepped foot in the kitchen. So having him do that was something. But I would put it in a way that like, well, it's too hot to go outside. Would you like to help me? And it became helping. I have to bake these for, and I would make something up. So the helping would brought him in the kitchen, and then he found out that was fun. But his profession, he and his brothers owned a business in the aerospace industry. So they made huge parts for airplanes for all the years I was growing up. So I would take dad over to the local airport and we would sit at the cafe and watch airplanes. And oh gosh, the staff there all loved and knew him. We had his birthday there. Going there I haven't been able to go back yet. It was so special. He loved his woodworking and being in the garage and cars and he would work in the yard for hours, loved his yard. So finding things again to do in the yard, we reorganized his shed twice. And he thought he was so helpful, but I had him sitting in the chair and I'd put a bin on his lap, but he was helping, right? And sometimes he'd hand me this or hand me that. And I took him to Home Depot and said, what do you think? We should put some new racks in there. What do you think? And it was his idea. And creating ways to make this project that probably could have been done in a half a day, we made it a 2-week project by breaking down each little thing and each trip to the hardware store for one thing. That way, it gave me a 2-week project. Now, next, we're going to go back for that hook. Next time, oh, we better go back. So where our brains, as being efficient, like I'm going to get it all in one trip and we're going to get this done. I had to take that out and say, how can I take this little task of something he loves doing in being busy or building something and turn it into a 2-week project that we do a little bit each day. And I think that helped as well to stretch things out, whether it was trimming the rose bushes, sweeping, cleaning the patio, being in his garage. We found ways to entertain him. Getting the mail. Oh, getting the mail every day was such a big deal. Oh, nope, not time yet. It's mail time. And he'd have to remember where the key was. And we'd walk through this process and I would turn getting the mail into a 30-minute adventure.
With my mom and my current mailbox, it probably would be. So it's across the street, up a slight hill, and it's about 2 houses over.
Okay.
So it's it's probably a 5 or so minute
His
tax
2 houses up as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
So
playing.
and the hill, but I have to say, I would like if you guys have ever done a home improvement project, any kind of organizational project, and been able to go to the hardware store once, please let me know. Because that had never happened. I am super organized and super efficient to a fault. Sometimes it's annoying. And it makes me absolutely bonkers. Like, I didn't want to go again. So I'm just thinking, it's like, you're like, yeah, no, that would just be kind of like, oh, well, we're going to go again. No big deal. It's keeping mom happy, which
is keeping him happy.
Yeah.
And I made a point that the stores that we frequented, I would very quickly acclimate myself with those workers there and say, I'm with my father with Alzheimer's. May we please check out here at this, whatever the closest one was. And I got to tell you, they accommodated us so much so that I could get dad through with ease. I made sure that I made us known. We're part of your community. I'm going to be here a lot with my father. He has Alzheimer's. Can we please use this special checkout where only people usually go for returns? And they'd go, absolutely, come on over. And they'd get to know us. And sometimes setting that up, the grocery store as well, they would help us. And we would get to a certain line and then they would help us. And making them aware so that I felt I was creating a community in this with his care, that those in our community had a chance to partner with me. And, people really do enjoy that. They love knowing that they played a part in helping this sweet man. And they'd say, is that your dad? That's my dad. And they'd let us go first and help us, with things. And I just found that to be really helpful. But sometimes it's that fear of wanting to talk to strangers or to communicate or just going through the store and trying to be, not seen. I made our presence very known, and we did get special help. We had our own table at this place and our own checkout at that place. And then he loved it because they'd be like, hey, Tom. And he'd go, hey. And he'd get so excited. And he got his socialization. We had an outing. We were successful. We minimized any chance of him falling or, needing the bathroom sooner. I think we created these little pockets of success that ended up also contributing to his joy and to mine as well.
Well, and to the broader understanding of the community.
Yes.
You basically inadvertently, so to speak, trained other people like this is how you talk to somebody with Alzheimer's. It's not that big a deal. I really wish I had known. I used to take my mom to Joanne Fabrics, made that store, rest in peace. And because my mom she was very crafty. She sewed, well, first she started off with those mommy and me matching holiday outfits in the 70s. Whew, some of those patterns were ugly. Not the dress, but the fabric, 70s all. And she made she made both of my junior prom and senior ball dress. She made at least 3 for my sister, if not 4. I think she made 4 for her. My sister is much more outgoing than I am. And she made my bridesmaids dresses, my flower girl dresses, the cummerbunds for the guys. She bought her dress and it was silk and the hem was all wonky because it just slipped out from under the needle. She had to pin that hem literally every quarter of an inch.
Wow.
It's straight, which of course she was doing the night before. That was my mom's superpower. Procrastination. Ugh, I am so not like that. It used to make me just like die inside because it's like, lady, I am so stressed out that you're gonna have this dress with pins in it. And, oh, I think I was much more like my dad. But she did all of that stuff. She painted, she did woodworking as well. But I would take her to Joann's, and the last time we went, she was constantly picking up things off the floor. And it wasn't always merchandise that had fallen off the shelf. And it was a little stressful because I wasn't really sure what she was picking up. And I didn't want to be like, no, 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 don't do that, don't do that. I would try to redirect her attention.
Yes.
Man, I wish I had had her talk to some of the clerks who probably, like
did.
the fabric cutting person. She could probably talk to them for
Yes. Well, and our job here as hopefully educators for this, for others in the community and others, family members and caregivers who may not realize that, I could not have had the success model that I did without the community that was created. Again, down to our grocery store and big chains, Target, Home Depot, our favorite little restaurants, all of them played a role in our success because they did partner with me in making sure that he was happy, safe, and okay. And it opened that conversation that it's okay to say, my father has Alzheimer's. It's okay to say the name of this disease. It's okay to acknowledge this in public. That wasn't embarrassing. It was real life. And how many people know someone or have a loved one who is currently, was, or about to be somebody with dementia. And I feel that I took that stigma off for him. And they would see also that I had the camera on a lot of the times, but I couldn't have done it without them. To know that we had special checkouts and special seats and even the airport when I would take them there, they had a please wait to be seated. Nope, not if Tom walked in. Your table's right there. Just go, go, go. And the waitresses would come over and greet him, and they knew his favorite food, and he would get so excited, and it created such a bigger experience for us. And then also those that met us knowing that they could follow us on social media, follow our journey. And then they'd be cheering him on. And it was such a community way of caregiving that I am so grateful for. And I miss a lot of them dearly as I'm now back in my other life.
Well, what lessons are you going to take? I know it's still early days, so you haven't completely gone back to the old life. What are you going to do different now that you've had this experience and this all of this like reflective insight?
I'm going to appreciate in the moments and sit and slow down and stop and be okay and not be restless. I am going to ask myself, are you safe, loved, healthy, and happy? Because I don't remember a time in my life that I would stop and ask myself that. I'm going to show myself now the same care and kindness that I showed him and see if it helps my overall spirit. And what a beautiful way to honor his, because I know he would want that for me as well.
I do. I don't know really when it started, But I do the same thing. There's just times when it's like, I live on a golf course again, sans dog that ricochets out of the door. And there are times when it's like, seriously? Every foursome that's come through here, screaming and yelling, and we're in a little valley, so it echoes. The people across, and we're talking a football field at least, trying to gauge. No depth perception, so it's hard. You can sit on your deck and have a normal conversation at this tone of voice. I can hear you just fine some days.
That's hilarious.
And it's like sometimes you kind of almost, I wish I had their like mobile number so I could text them like, shh, I can hear your.
Golf's a quiet sport.
Well, the golfers are one thing, but it's like there was one day these two ladies were literally walking on the path on the opposite, like as far away from my house as they could get. And I was like, are they? They're just talking in a normal tone of voice. So there's times when it's like, these people don't seem to realize like every 15, 20 minutes, there's another group of screamers coming through here. So frustrating. So I try to take those in between times and go, I can hear the birds. Uh-oh, I hear the hummingbirds. I swear I call those murder birds because they are so curious. I have literally had hummingbirds buzz.
They'll dive bomb.
Yeah. Like, hello, I'm much bigger than you. Maybe not as fast. Like, it's really weird when a hummingbird buzzes you. But, just like to take a minute and go, oh, it's so quiet. Or it's so warm. Like the other day it was like, like today is 58 degrees and raining. And 2 days ago, it's gorgeous, gorgeous. Spring in California, what can I say? And so I just stop and take those moments. It's like, sometimes life is really a pain in the butt. I'm just going to enjoy this sunshine on my face and do what I can to just like soak in the like that awe moment. So it sounds like that's what you're going to be doing.
Yes. And embrace what's next and hopefully continue to encourage others and share my story and share our story. And I know it's a unique story to say I'm here to talk about joy and dementia, but truly as much pain as it was losing him, I am so grateful that his last year wasn't angst and boredom and fear.
Definitely.
He tried things he had never tried before. He trusted me that he was safe. He got to laugh and play. He got to be out in the community and not just kept inside. And he got to live up until the last moment he wasn't living. And for that, I am grateful.
Well, that's a beautiful testament to your dad. Are the videos still available?
Oh, yes.
And which platform is best for those? YouTube, Instagram?
Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook is where all of the videos are. And I'm repeating some of them now with lessons I learned in dementia and sharing some fun highlights. But they're all there to see, and some really fun, especially the car karaoke. I think everybody really loved our carpool karaoke. He loved to sing with me. Music was our bond together. But yes, any of Amy Scruggs, you can find me. Just put in Amy Scruggs, You Can't Miss Me, and you can see those videos of my journey with Dad. It was beautiful.
Well, they won't have to look for you. I will make sure that Facebook and Instagram are linked. I don't do TikTok, so I'm not
That's
sure.
fine. And Facebook and Instagram are great.
Yes, and I'll definitely share those links in the show notes. And I wish you the best on this new journey, which is different. It's amazing how much caregiving changes you. You just kind of think, well, I'll go back to my old life. No, that's not happening.
Forever changed.
Yep.
Forever changed. Thank you for the blessing that you are providing to so many with this show for 8+ years and changing the narrative and the discussion in Alzheimer's and care. And I just really appreciate all that you do.
Thank you for sharing your journey, because I'm wishing I could go back and redo things with my mom, because I've learned so much, but you've been very, very inspiring today.
Thank you.